Hey everyone, I'm Zen Bake, this is Auto Group, and this is my Alfa Romeo Giulia TI Q4. Now TI is like the middle spec for the car, kind of balances luxury and performance, both of them. And as you can see, this is our first video. Welcome to the summer season of Auto Group in 2021. We probably didn't have the video, any video up since that last SVR video, probably like 3 or 4 months ago. And that was like towards the kind of middle-ish of my second semester in college. So I was wrapping up like, all the finals and stuff. So then we decided not to upload something for a while I was searching for this car, because this is the first time I actually went out and searched for a car for myself, rather than like helping someone else search for a car or whatever. So we looked for a bunch of different cars before this one, and it all started with a brand new, this 2021 Volkswagen Golf GTI. And I went to go drive that probably in the end of February or the end of March. And then I went to drive it again a month later and drove it for a really long time. We drove the 6-speed manual and the dual clutch. They were both decent, and I actually really enjoyed the way the car handled. But for being a car that's about $10,000 cheaper than this Alfa, what's very interesting about the car is the fact that the lease prices have like a huge premium on them compared to anything else for that price range. They were like $34,000, but their lease price was like for a car that's $48,000 or $49,000. So it was a really big premium, and they were talking about how the Golf is such a special car, that's why it has those lease prices. And then after that, we also checked out a 2018 Lexus GS350 F Sport all-wheel drive, the fully loaded car, and that had depreciated to about $43,000. And Lexus offers, that lease program for up to cars that are 4 years old. But that I didn't end up liking that car too much either. I thought the GTI was better than that. Then another car that we tested was the Kia K5 GT line, and I really actually thought that was a very solid car. And I thought it would be, very budget friendly and a very solid car to commute in every day, because it had some really advanced features: your navigation system, your self-driving capabilities, and your panoramic roof, stuff like that. But that car again ended up being, not so good in terms of its price overall for the car like that. It was cheaper than the GTI, but it's still not a good lease rate on that either. Then finally, thank God we waited for this, because I thought that this car was something that had probably a really big premium on it, but it was actually the exact opposite. And even though this is a car that's about $10,000–$15,000 more than both the GTI and the K5, the way it drives and the way it makes you feel and the way it looks, it blows every other car in the category out of the water. And I've tested the Mercedes C-Class, and I thought that was a very good car as well. I've had a bit of experience with the BMW 3 Series. I haven't driven it yet, but that is also a great car, and that's kind of known to be the all-rounder. And this car is very hidden, and normally when people talk about the Giulia, they talk about the Giulia Quadrifoglio. And I drove that car about 2 years ago almost, and I was very surprised at how cool that car was. But it wasn't really my type of car, because I don't know, for some reason the performance and the feel wasn't how I felt like it should have been. But this car balances all the things that you love about the Quadrifoglio and removes all the things that you don't really like about it, and it makes it much more usable. So in terms of its power, this is powered by a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder, pretty common for the entire segment, 4-cylinder engine. But it makes 280 horsepower and 306 pound-feet of torque. So that's quite a big number. It's about 30 more horsepower than the C-Class, about 30 more horsepower than the BMW 3 Series, and about 60 more horsepower than like the Lexus IS, or maybe 40 more horsepower. So starting up with the front, you get a few different bumper options for the car. This is the non-sport trim, because it is the TI non-sport, or I think they're calling it the carbon this time. So this has your normal classic grille. But what's really interesting is that there's really not much of a difference in the front end, even though you get a couple different options. So it still kind of looks, quite like the Quadrifoglio actually, pretty similar design with the ventilation and stuff. But in the Sport, you do get this piece taken out basically, and the grille continues a little further down. So really not much of a difference at all. But when you come along to the side, here's something that I could show you that's very unique, is that you get a few cool different wheel options for the car. These are 19-inch wheels wrapped in Bridgestone Turanzas. They're all-season tires. And in the back you could see those painted brake calipers as well. That's an extra option, but usually I think the dealership pretty much specs all of them with the painted brake calipers, because it is just about like a $500 option, and they might as well do that. It's very attractive to people. So, and in the back, of course, you have a little smaller brake caliper in the back, a smaller disc in the back as well. But what's very interesting is that the car is powered by front Brembo brakes, which is really, really surprising. Nobody talks about these things. I have yet to find a video on YouTube that actually goes over in detail about how cool the car actually is and how quadrifoglio inspired it is. Another thing that's very impressive is that it has a carbon fiber drive shaft, which I had no idea about, but which is absolutely amazing. So yeah, really, you know, thank God we waited for this. I was so close to picking one of the other cars. Coming on to the side, actually, let's talk about the side profile real quick. What's interesting about this car a lot is the fact that a lot of people talk about how beautiful it is. No doubt, yes, it is beautiful. But what's very interesting is that it's so subtly, you know, sporty looking and Italian looking that you really can't tell until you park it next to a car that isn't the Alfa Romeo Giulia. And then you notice the differences. Then you notice the way the body is so wide on the side and the way that width progresses all the way to the rear. And then in the rear as well, you have your dual exhaust outlets as well, and of course LED taillights. You got the Q4 badge. The Q4 means all-wheel drive. And another thing that I haven't heard other people talk about is the fact that the all-wheel drive system is never really an all-wheel drive unless you're picking it up from a stop sign, or, you know, a stoplight or whatever in your acceleration needs, and in snow and rain conditions. Basically, anytime you need grip, then the front axle does engage for your extra traction. Or else basically it's always rear-wheel drive. And there's a little chart in the options in the vehicle information, and that you could have that live chart and it shows you where the power is being distributed. So anyways, I guess since we're at the back, might as well show you the trunk space. So as we open up the trunk, you can see the depth of it is actually quite impressive. Now, I don't remember what the space is inside the new BMW 3 Series and the Mercedes C-Class, but honestly, I think this is pretty comparable to all those cars. And I usually have, you know, your detailed write-ups. So if you want to read more about the car, about the specs, the details, the dimensions, and the way it drives, definitely check out the YouTube written description. Anyways, let's go ahead and go to the inside of the car. So when you get inside the car, what's very interesting is that there are a few little things that you might notice, and it makes you really, you know, feel how sporty the car is compared to all its competitors. So the thing about this class of car is that since all of them have like a turbo 4-cylinder, and we're getting so used to saying that, oh, you know, 250 horsepower, 280 horsepower isn't enough for a sports sedan. What's actually the case is the fact that when you gear the car properly and make it more racy in its response and accelerator response as well, and with this sporty all-wheel drive system, it changes up the character a lot more than you might expect. And at 280 horsepower and 306 pound-feet of torque, somebody tested this car 0 to 60 for 4.7 seconds, so that is absolutely amazing. And when you're sitting inside here with the brown leather, you can get a few different options. And at first I was looking at a silver one that I really liked, then a white one as well. And some of them have red interiors, some of them have, you know, your standard black interior as well. So, and this is the one with the non-adaptive suspension. So you have a fixed suspension setup for the whole car. So now that we're sitting inside the Alfa Romeo Giulia, a few interesting things that you notice right off the bat is the fact that the push button start is on the steering wheel, and that is the design that they've gone for. Very Ferrari-ish, very, you know, race car-ish, which is cool. And a suggestion I would actually make is that maybe they should also take your drive mode selector and controls that really tune the performance, like traction control, and your drive mode selector and a few different other controls, they should be on the wheel. So it's much more inspired, you know, like much more race car-ish, instead of having your media controls. But that's just a minor little suggestion, you know, to make in regards to how to set up the car. But that's preference. Some people like it in the center console. Some people like it somewhere else. And here is the key fob for the car. As you can see, it says Alfa Romeo at the bottom. You got your alarm button, and it's 2 times to open the trunk, 2 times to start the car, and then you got lock and unlock, obviously. And in the back, you have the Alfa Romeo badge. So another interesting little detail is the fact that the Alfa badge inside is black and white, whereas the outside one was in color. And at first I was like, okay, maybe they saved the color one for the quadrifoglio, but it's actually the exact same. They keep it black and white inside. For your drive modes, let me tell you how that works. It's very interesting. So basically in your advanced efficiency, if you read the owner's manual, it tells you that in this mode, this is for your most intrusive ESC controls and everything. So it's basically like if you're in the snow as well, even if you're not trying to be, you know, super eco-friendly, it can, you know, provide more traction and stuff. It's a little less, you know, sporty. And then as you climb up in the modes and you get to dynamic, obviously it's the most sporty, and it probably allows for quite a bit more, you know, oversteer and full everything, you know, sport. Everything is sport, nothing is not sport. Another suggestion I have would be for them to add an individual mode so you could customize these things. And then if we look at the gauge cluster as well, you got that center display, and it's very interesting. This is another hidden thing, is the fact that the control for it is right on the windshield wiper stock, and it says menu. So you could change that, and you can get that MPG meter, and then you got a big speedometer option as well. But as you change the modes, that thing changes as well. So when you're in dynamic, it gives you your gas. You could check your throttle, how much you're putting in, and then the brake, and then it tells you the water temperature as well. So quite track focused, obviously. Then if you go down to dynamic, down to advanced efficiency, you could see that it'll show you your, this is when you're driving, it'll show you your acceleration, MPG, then your deceleration, and then I think your standstill, what you're getting overall. So that's pretty interesting as well. So in your performance pages tab, if you go to technical gauges, it shows you your PSI, and it tells you your boost, and then your torque figure as well. So when you rev it up, you could see the torque number change live, which is really cool. So for your climate control as well, the controls are pretty simple. Basically, you got your dual zone climate control, of course, and if we turn off sync, then I could just adjust this side individually and this side individually, right? But as soon as you press sync, it goes to whatever the driver is switching around. And then you could also put it on auto. And then you could choose your automatic or manual for your fresh air controls. And it's both of them kind of stay, you know, this is where you get your fresh air in when none of the lights are on. And then you got automatic, and you got back to manual. So you got auto for both sides as well, which is cool. You also have heated seats, and their controls are down here as well. The 3-stage heated seats, heated steering wheel, right? Of course, front defroster as well. And an interesting thing about the car is that I think in wintertime, if you start the car with the remote, it automatically sets on the heated steering wheel and the heated seats for you when you get in the car to, you know, welcome you in that way, which is obviously a great feature. You got a few different controls on the side of the car. On the far left, you have your auto start stop off button, and then you have your park assist off button. So when the lights are on, that means both settings are off. And then another interesting thing about the car is the fact that when you put it into gear, you just need the button, obviously, to put it in drive. Then you got minus, plus. Up is minus, and then down is, you know, plus. It's a little different in some cars. Even in the Golf GTI, it was switched around, which is just a little interesting, you know, detail, because I know people prefer this a lot, where it's down to shift up. So for the seat settings, I'm about 6'3", and behind me, pretty much nobody can sit behind me when I'm in the driving position. And you also have 3-stage memory controls as well, 1, 2, 3. And then your seat controls are pretty simple. There's no extension for your seat, but obviously the seat is kind of made in a way that you don't really need that at all, you know, so it's a good system. And then pretty much in the back as well, for the back seat, it's pretty much like right around the whole segment, pretty much the same as the C-Class as well. So that's pretty equal in its size. Little attention to detail is the fact that around the edges where the leather may meet other pieces of leather, in the seat sides as well, there's fabric usage, obviously, so you don't get that squeaking noise that you get in a leather seat. Anyways, let's go ahead and go on the drive. So, in our little city drive for the Alfa Romeo Giulia, the first thing, obviously, that you notice in the car is the fact that the feel of the car is much more racy than the competitors. You hear the engine more, and the steering actually has, you know, feel, and it has the quickest steering ratio in the whole class. So what that means is that your turning radius is obviously not super, you know, ideal or practical like people expect, you know, a normal sedan to do so. But what it makes up for is the fact that it makes the handling feel very, very sharp. Now, speaking of handling, one of the things that's very interesting about the car is the fact that when you normally pick up a car at the dealership, I didn't realize this, but they have the tires filled quite, pretty much overfilled by a lot. And when I checked the tire pressure, thank God I actually checked it, or else I would have been driving it around everywhere thinking it was supposed to be that way. It was 52 psi, and the car is recommended for like 35 fronts and 37 rears. And then when we went and adjusted that on a cold day, there was a massive difference in performance. And that is something that's very interesting. It made the car way, way, way softer in its response. I remember taking it on the highway on the way back from the shop after getting it, getting it checked up. And the whole car was so much softer, and you felt a little lean, a little much more bouncing over bumps. And then you realize that it's actually quite smart. What they did is because this car has 19-inch wheels, and in Chicago's potholes, instead of having to dodge everywhere because it's so harsh or something, they kind of balanced it out. So they made the tires take up a lot of the load from the road, and they kept the suspension soft. And you definitely don't want to actually overfill it to that line. Within like a second, you're already at the speed limit of pretty much everywhere, so it makes it quite frustrating. And the car has this very racy feel. Even in natural, the transmission like lurches back and forward at low speeds because it's just like, telling you to go faster and faster, but obviously you can't. And that's why I just don't drive it anywhere in dynamic mode pretty much, except for like the open highway or something where you finally can, or else it's just because, it's too racy. And advanced efficiency is actually quite good for a little city and stuff. It's very nice in its response, and that's something that I like a lot. But then again, you're pretty much in natural the whole time. And I know some people drive this car all the time in dynamic. I was reading the owner's forum. They're like, oh yeah, I beat on my Alpha every day, just going to work and stuff, manual mode or whatever. But you just don't really get that opportunity anywhere. But what I'm very grateful for is another thing, that the car, even at very low speeds, is very nice and aggressive and fun, and so many cars miss out on that, and they're just, cars like, for example, like a 600 horsepower E63 or stuff, you really need an open road, or else it's kind of just very, very luxurious and soft and calm. And this car is pretty much always in this sort of racy experience. Like, it wants you to go fast, and the steering wheel is very, very sharp, and it moves pretty much as soon as you move it off center. And it has this nice and light feel. It doesn't have that fake, weightedness to make it feel sporty, because you honestly don't need that at all. And another thing, especially when you're on the highway for your fuel economy, is that when you let off the gas, it kicks into neutral, and then you get this free-flowing effect. Next up are actually the brakes, interestingly enough, because they are brake-by-wire instead of having like a real brake pedal that you step on to slow down the car. It's all artificially controlled. But what I'm very happy about, I'm so grateful that it has this realistic feel of the brake pedal. It doesn't feel overly rubbery or overly sensitive. You get that heft, and then as soon as you keep digging into the pedal, you get more and more stopping power. So that is another thing that's very interesting. So that pretty much covers it all for your city driving. There's not much else to really focus on. And then the final thing is, your spirited driving in dynamic mode, and I have those clips recorded for you. And it just barely any throttle, and the car actually picks up really, really hard. And that is one of the things that really, really impressed me about the car when we first took it out on the road. You could just feed the steering into the car, and without any movement, it just can turn like nothing else. And we've taken probably 20 or 25 cars on this road, sometimes from Lexus or sometimes from another company, whatever it is. And that is serious, very sophisticated body control that I've never experienced in this price level for a car like this, So this car is still in natural mode. And when you hit the gas, the shifts are still really, really fast, and that's something that's so impressive about this car. When you're just going at about 50 miles per hour and then you step on it, it doesn't downshift too much in natural mode, but the car just goes forward really, really fast. And that is another thing that was quite surprising to me about this car once again. And that is because the competition, like I said, when I drove the Lexus IS, when I drove the C-Class, these cars, they are more tuned towards your luxury and comfort. This car is totally focused on sports. So thank you so much for watching this episode of Auto Group. I hope you guys really enjoyed. Make sure to like and subscribe. Let me know if you have any questions about the car as well, and make sure to read the detailed description. Thank you so much, guys. Take care.